My daughter is missing. Together with my husband, I came to the 1-month checkup for our baby. However, the nurse took our daughter away and hasn't returned. Frantically searching the hospital, a person stood before me.
You need to escape too.
To my surprise, it was the nurse who had taken charge of our daughter. She forcefully grabbed my arm and started running. She seemed frightened by something.
Wait! Where is my baby?
In response to my question, the nurse revealed a truth I didn't know. And I realized the true meaning behind her actions, leaving me stunned. Little did I know that this was just the prelude to the nightmare I would experience later. At 28, I gave birth to my daughter Maria and was on maternity leave. My husband, Nicholas, a senior bank employee, and I were very close.
I love everything about you. Your full name sounds amazing, so let's keep it as is.
Even after marriage, I kept my maiden name to avoid the hassle. We were blissfully happy, but I couldn't help but be curious about Nicholas's secretive side.
I can't share much about my job. There are confidentiality obligations.
He always evaded questions about where he worked and what he did. Given the strict privacy rules, I didn't press further. We both had enough to live comfortably, and I planned to return to work, so I didn't dig deeper. Little did I know that this was a grave mistake, one I'd regret deeply. At that moment, I had no idea the cruel events that lay ahead. One morning, I had just sent Nicholas off to work, and our 1-month-old daughter Maria was sleeping peacefully in her crib. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of someone pounding on our apartment door echoed through the room. Maria might wake up. I hurriedly opened the front door, only to find a thin, unfamiliar woman standing there. Her hair was bright blonde, but the roots were reddish, and the dry ends seemed to reflect her lack of composure. As soon as our eyes met, she began to panic.
I can't work anymore. Please forgive me. What's going on? Who are you?
Despite my questions, she continued to cry and scream, making it nearly impossible to understand her.
I don't know you. I think you've got the wrong person.
Terrified by her intensity, I forcefully closed the door. Still, she remained outside, sobbing and repeating apologies. Should I call the police? Just as I reached for my phone, I heard a thud from the mailbox. The woman blurted out,
I can't take it anymore. Tell him to contact me.
And then disappeared. Tentatively, I checked the mailbox and found a business card inside. On it was the name of a place where a man and a woman might have drinks together. Could it be, was Nicholas having an affair? Did that woman confront me because of him? For a moment, those thoughts raced through my mind, but I quickly dismissed them. Nicholas would never do such a thing. Still, I couldn't shake the unease all day, and eventually, I had to ask him. He's always coming home late, but he wouldn't be seeing someone else, right? That night, when he returned from work, I cautiously broached the subject without mentioning the woman's visit. Nicholas seemed genuinely surprised.
What's going on? Why the sudden question?
I just wondered if you were getting tired of me. It was just a passing thought.
What are you talking about? I'm head over heels for you. I don't talk to other women in private.
He smiled gently and hugged me. Yes, that's right, the woman must have visited the wrong house. Relieved, I still couldn't bring myself to show Nicholas her business card or throw it away. Instead, I tucked it into the kitchen drawer. About a week later, something happened. Nicholas had taken a day off, so we went together for Maria's 1-month checkup. After checking in at the hospital, our assigned nurse arrived promptly. She was about my mother's age and had a name resembling that of a certain movie heroine. Wow, how unusual! As I admired her, the nurse looked surprised for some reason and swiftly took Maria from my arms.
Let's weigh the baby.
Before I could respond, she hurriedly left the room. However, 15 minutes passed, then 20, and still no sign of the baby. Why was it taking so long? Worried, I peeked into the examination room, but Maria wasn't there. I think my child came to be weighed? I asked another nurse nearby, and to my surprise, she tilted her head and said,
No baby came for weighing at that time.
Shocked, I explained the situation at the reception desk with Nicholas. Thanks to the memorable name, they quickly investigated. Turns out, not only did they not know where the child was, but they also couldn't find the nurse.
This is unbelievable. Let's split up and search.
Panicked, Nicholas and I decided to comb through the large hospital. As I hurried down a corridor leading to the back exit, the nurse suddenly appeared before me.
You! Where's my baby?
Before I could raise my voice, she urgently signaled for silence.
Don't worry. I'll guide you to your baby. And you need to escape too.
She grabbed my bewildered arm and led me toward the back exit. She seemed frightened, running away from something. Finally reaching the hospital's rear exit, we found Maria's stroller tucked behind an inconspicuous pillar. There, Maria slept soundly.
Oh, thank goodness.
Relieved, I reached for my baby, but the nurse swiftly scooped her up.
Hey! What are you doing?
Ignoring my raised voice, she urged,
Quickly!
And continued running. Then, as she settled Maria into the child seat of a parked car outside, she instructed me to get in too. What on earth was happening? I couldn't fully comprehend, but determined to reclaim my child, I hesitantly got into the car. The nurse took the driver's seat, and we sped away. Finally, seeming a bit calmer, she cleared her throat and glanced at me.
I apologize for startling you. But I couldn't speak there. We're short on time, so I'll explain briefly.
As she drove, she began revealing shocking truths, showing me photographic evidence that left my heart pounding. This couldn't be. I wouldn't forgive this. And with each revelation, my anger intensified. After finishing our conversation, we retraced our steps. Although there was a minor commotion at the hospital, we had coordinated our story, so there were no issues. The nurse who had taken care of Maria explained that our daughter suddenly started fussing, and she searched for me before the weight measurement. However, at that exact moment, I had gone to a new restroom in a different building. Unaware of this mix-up, I returned to the original spot and claimed that our daughter hadn't returned, causing a commotion. I apologize for causing inconvenience due to my hasty assumptions. As I apologized deeply while holding our daughter, the hospital staff and Nicholas showed relieved expressions, knowing the baby was safe. After firmly shaking hands with the nurse and bidding farewell at the hospital, I began preparing for revenge. From the next day onward, I met with lawyers, conducted investigations, and gathered evidence. With help from my family, I managed childcare. Then, 6 days after Maria's 1-month checkup.
All right, let's go to the movies and have a dinner date.
Excitedly, Nicholas stood in the living room, putting on his jacket. We had arranged for childcare with my parents during the day, planning a rare date night. However, as we headed toward the front door as a couple, we heard a loud pounding.
Let me in! Listen to me!
The voice belonged to the same woman who had visited us before. Without hesitation, I opened the door. There stood the woman. Trembling, Nicholas ignored her, but I took her hand and invited her inside. Nicholas protested.
Hey! Don't bother with this mysterious woman.
I can't just ignore her. She must have something important to say, right? I led her into the house, and Nicholas reluctantly followed. Seated on the living room sofa as I suggested, the woman began to speak. Introducing herself as Isla, she explained that she was a single mother struggling financially. She had visited a small financial company seeking a loan and encountered Nicholas. According to her, Nicholas was the owner of a lending business located in a mixed-use building.
What? Weren't you a high-ranking bank employee?
I exclaimed, shocked. Nicholas waved his hand in front of his face, denying it.
What are you talking about? I'm certainly not some petty moneylender.
But Isla stared coldly at him and continued. She felt favorably toward Nicholas, who kindly listened to her debt concerns. He advised her to borrow a large sum up front to reduce repayment amounts. It's a great deal. However, in reality, she was coerced into paying exorbitant interest, making repayment impossible.
This is outrageous!
Nicholas insisted.
It's not me. You've got the wrong person.
As I narrowed my eyes suspiciously, Nicholas repeated desperately.
It wasn't me.
Isla, undeterred, pulled out documents from her bag, loan agreements and transfer records, showing Nicholas's name and the company's name. She tearfully explained that she had already paid off the $20,000 loan but was now being forced to pay an additional $10,000 in interest. When she couldn't comply, she was coerced into working at a nightclub from evening until dawn, as evidenced by her diary entries. The truth revealed by Isla left me trembling with anger.
Using debt as an excuse to force such unreasonable labor. Try putting yourself in their shoes.
I trembled with anger at the appalling story. Perhaps feeling cornered, Nicholas raised his voice even louder than mine.
I'm a top-notch banker. She's lying. Loan agreement? She even went to the trouble of creating such elaborate fake documents.
According to Nicholas, he met Isla at a nightclub during a business engagement. Since then, she had been stalking him. Isla spread rumors that he was wealthy and worked for a major bank, saying, "He'll definitely make something of me."
I kept quiet to spare you worry. After all, our child is still young.
Regret washed over me as I looked at his apologetic expression.
This is the perfect opportunity. Don't ever appear before me again. I want no further involvement.
He glared at Isla, shouting.
To think all this happened. Can I trust you?
I asked Nicholas, and he nodded confidently, embracing me. Isla stared at us with a piercing gaze. Ignoring her, I discreetly retrieved a piece of paper from the living room shelf.
Could you write this just in case your claims turn out to be nonsense?
I playfully handed Nicholas a divorce consent form. Suddenly, Nicholas froze, as if confronted with a terrifying document.
You won't even sign a consent form? You lack the courage?
I showed my disappointment, and he snatched the paper, flustered.
No way. Trust me. Writing a consent form is a piece of cake. I hesitated because I thought that would satisfy you.
He laughed, swiftly signing the document and returning it to me.
Believe in me.
He thumped his chest confidently. Unable to contain myself, I burst out laughing.
We did it! Success!
I cheered, high-fiving Isla. Nicholas stared at our sudden excitement, eyes wide.
You fell for it completely. We've exposed everything.
I spread a pile of photos from a bag on the table. The photos depicted Nicholas frequenting a dubious financial company within a mixed-use building. They showed him taking multiple women to nightclubs, making them work, and withholding their wages after their shifts. Capturing the desperate pleas of these women and his heartless actions made me feel nauseous. Truth be told, I had secretly planted a GPS tracker in Nicholas's belongings and had been tailing him since the day of Maria's one-month checkup. While Maria stayed with my parents, I gathered evidence, discovering that Nicholas ran a ruthless loan shark business.
You're no bank employee. I knew it 5 days ago when Isla told me.
What?
I confronted him with a furious expression. In fact, when Isla first barged into our home, I had used her business card to find her and hear her side of the story. Armed with the facts she provided, we staged this performance together to seek revenge.
Fabricating lies and even calling Isla a stalker. Unbelievable.
I said, and Isla nodded in agreement.
And 6 months ago, you were already using aggressive collection tactics at the hospital.
I recalled the story the nurse I met during Maria's one-month checkup shared with me in the car. Surprisingly, she was an eyewitness to Nicholas's aggressive debt collection tactics. About 6 months ago, a woman covered in bruises was urgently brought in for treatment due to overwork caused by being forced to work relentlessly. While doctors and other staff tried to intervene, Nicholas and 2 other men burst into the room, shouting at the woman,
Pay your debt. Running won't help. I'll chase you to hell.
They even threatened her, saying,
If you can't work to repay the debt, we'll use your life insurance.
Eventually, before the police were called, Nicholas and his companions left the scene. However, the nurse remembered his face vividly. When she saw Nicholas during Maria's checkup, she immediately recognized him as that man from back then and tried to help me, thinking I was unaware of the situation. To convey the truth, she separated Maria and me from Nicholas and shared everything with me.
So, am I about to be silenced and turned into money?
I retrieved a life insurance contract from under the pile of photos. Somehow, it had been taken out in my name without my knowledge.
No, that was just in case something happened to leave our child behind.
Nicholas's continued evasiveness pushed me over the edge.
Marrying into the family just to change your name and extort money from me. How despicable.
I played the recorded audio from the bug I had planted along with the GPS. It captured Nicholas talking on the phone, saying things like,
I married into the family to change my name.
and,
If I erase my wife and child, I'll get a substantial sum.
confronted with irrefutable evidence, Nicholas clenched his teeth and looked down.
I'll report your illegal financial dealings with these women to the police. And of course, I'll provide them with this evidence.
That's ridiculous. Involving the police is excessive.
What are you saying after all you've done? Emotional distress compensation of $10,000, child support of $150,000, totaling $160,000. Plus compensation for the victims. And let the police handle the rest.
I glared at him with contempt, and Nicholas, teary-eyed, bit his lip.
But, I won't agree to a divorce. I'll haunt you forever.
Nicholas seemed determined to harass me as a last resort. He flailed like a child, throwing a tantrum. However, I had the signed consent form.
Well, it's too late for that.
I fluttered the paper, declaring victory. Seeing this, Nicholas seemed to remember that he had signed it. His face paled, and he slumped, defeated. In the meantime, sirens sounded in the distance, and a police car arrived. While Nicholas and I argued, Isla had called for help. Nicholas, thoroughly dejected, was dragged off to the police station. Subsequently, Nicholas faced various charges. It became clear that he had extorted money from numerous people and forced them to work. Even the police officers interrogating him were furious. He was sweating and tearful during questioning. In court, the prosecutor pointed out his actions repeatedly, likely leading to more tears. The lawyer said,
He'll spend years paying for his crimes in a dim room, and the compensation could amount to hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Even if he gets released, he'll work tirelessly to repay his debts. Unfortunately, Nicholas only has money-minded associates. No one will help him. He'll face it alone. On the other hand, I promptly divorced him and began a new life with my daughter. Taking care of the baby was enjoyable, especially preparing her meals. I studied diligently, reading books and sharing my experiences on social media. My popularity grew, and I even published a recipe book. Plus, I got a little friendly with a male editor my age. He's dedicated to his work and great with kids. If things progress between us, I'll share with you more in the future.
How did you like this story? Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Until next time.
Why are you unharmed?
My mother-in-law had an accident while driving my husband's car and was transported by ambulance while unconscious. The doctor said tonight was critical, and when I contacted my husband, he responded with, "Why are you unharmed?" Realizing his slip of the tongue, my husband tried to cover it up, but I couldn't hear anything beyond that. I managed to maintain composure and informed my husband only about the hospital, quietly ending the call. At that moment, memories of my husband's unnatural behavior flooded my mind. Later, a single email on his phone revealed a shocking truth. My name is Charlotte Brown. 14 years ago, I married my husband who worked at an auto repair company, and at his request, I became a full-time homemaker. However, the once kind husband gradually revealed his true nature. After our daughter was born, he started verbally abusing me, calling me a parasite leeching off his earnings at every opportunity. Despite growing frustration, I couldn't work outside the home while caring for our young daughter, so I endured his behavior. Eventually, when our daughter entered elementary school, I managed to secure a part-time job. A year later, my work performance was recognized at the company, and my supervisor proposed, "Why not become a full-time employee?" Honestly, I felt more suited to working outside the home than constantly gauging my husband's mood as a homemaker. So, I mustered the courage to discuss this with my family. My daughter cheered, saying,
"Mom, do your best at work. I'll help with household chores."
She was genuinely thrilled. However, my husband remained silent, observing her enthusiasm with a displeased expression. Finally, he spoke, dripping with sarcasm.
I suppose this is just a pity offer to make you a regular employee? You'll start complaining soon enough. You should drop the idea.
When I insisted, "You won't know until I try," he retorted.
Oof, I earn enough money anyway. You don't need to be a full-time employee.
With our daughter's tuition fees and extracurricular activity costs, we'll never be in financial trouble no matter how much money we have. Unable to counter my argument, he grumbled.
Do whatever you want. But don't slack off on household chores.
With those words, he stormed off somewhere. Regardless, I was delighted to have persuaded my husband, and I couldn't help but share the news with my mother-in-law. She had endured her late domineering husband and became a reliable ally who scolded my husband when necessary. She always cared about me and our daughter, so she was thrilled to hear about my career advancement. As a full-time employee now, I could focus more on work, thanks to my daughter's help with household chores. Consequently, my performance at the company continued to improve. However, my husband, displeased by my apparent enjoyment of work, began treating me worse. His behavior escalated day by day.
Hey! There aren't enough side dishes. You need to prepare at least 5. There's dust in the corner of the room. Did you skip cleaning?
Despite never showing interest in household matters before, he now nitpicked every detail. Little did I know that his company was struggling financially, and his salary had been significantly reduced. I wondered if his harsh treatment toward me was related to his own frustrations. Wanting to lift his spirits, I decided to prepare his favorite seafood gumbo. But when he saw it, his face turned crimson, and he approached me angrily.
What's this?
I made it to cheer you up since you seemed down lately.
Damn it! Is this some kind of mockery toward pathetic me?
He shouted at me, pushed me, and then began slamming the pot and ingredients onto the floor. My daughter and I huddled together in a corner, unable to do anything.
This is what happens when you anger me. Clean up properly.
Then, my husband, who had overturned everything on the table, left the room with a satisfied expression. After that incident, my husband started coming home late from work more frequently. When I asked him about it, he explained that he was staying at the office late to study and obtain certifications in hopes of increasing his salary. However, on the days he worked overtime, there was always a distinct shampoo scent that didn't belong to anyone in our household. Could it be? A suspicion crossed my mind, and the word divorce flashed before me, but I couldn't confront my husband. Growing up with a single parent, I had experienced unpleasant situations, so I hesitated to take the step of divorce, especially considering our daughter. However, something changed abruptly. My husband's attitude shifted. On days when he returned early from work, he actively helped with household chores and even assisted our daughter with her homework. The drastic change left me bewildered. Perhaps the company's performance improved, and his salary increased? I wondered. Gradually, I began accepting this transformed version of my husband. One day, something unexpected happened.
By the way, didn't you mention wanting to wash the car soon? I'll do it at work, so lend it to me.
Oh, I can handle it myself.
Don't say that. I've been tough on you because work hasn't been going well, but I'm not saying this makes up for it, but let me take care of the washing. Oh, and I'll do a quick inspection too.
I was honestly surprised because he had never made such an offer since we got married. However, when I looked into his sincere eyes, I decided to ask for his help.
You need a car for shopping and other things, right? Since the inspection will take about a week, go ahead and use my car during that time.
I can manage with my bicycle for commuting and shopping.
No. Rainy days can be tough for shopping. Use it without hesitation.
Given his strong attachment to cars due to his profession, I hesitated to drive his car, fearing any mishaps. Yet, he persistently encouraged me. Despite feeling slightly uneasy about it, I eventually accepted the keys he practically forced upon me. Still, I couldn't bring myself to drive his car, So even after 2 days of borrowing it, I continued commuting and shopping by bicycle. One day, my mother-in-law visited our home with souvenirs from a trip. Since I had a weekday off, I invited her inside, and we sat down for tea. During our conversation, my mother-in-law mentioned that she wanted to take the souvenirs to a friend who lived in the neighboring town. She asked if she could borrow my car for this purpose. Since my mother-in-law doesn't own a car, she occasionally borrows mine. However, on that particular day, the car available at home was not my usual one, it was my husband's. I explained this to her, but my mother-in-law insisted.
It's only about a 30-minute round trip, so it'll be fine.
She got into my husband's car and drove off. However, an hour passed, and she still hadn't returned. Why hasn't she called? She always does when she's running late. As I waited, wondering if she was engrossed in conversation with her friend, the home phone suddenly rang. When I answered the phone, thinking it might be my mother-in-law, it turned out to be the police. They informed me that my mother-in-law had been driving and mistakenly hit the gas instead of the brake, crashing into a nearby convenience store. Fortunately, there were no casualties, but my mother-in-law was in critical condition and unconscious, taken to the hospital. I immediately tried calling my husband, but he didn't answer. In a panic, I rushed to the hospital. However, the doctor's words there were cruel.
This is the turning point tonight.
My mind couldn't process the sudden situation, but I knew I had to contact my husband. I called him repeatedly until he finally picked up. However, his response was beyond belief.
Why are you unharmed?
I was dumbfounded. He quickly backtracked, claiming he was too shaken. But his shocking words left me speechless. I relayed the hospital's name to him and hung up quietly. Earlier, what was that all about? The suspicion toward my husband lingered in my mind, but there were more pressing matters. Lying on a hospital bed in the emergency treatment room was my mother-in-law, connected to numerous tubes and IVs. Her painful appearance left me speechless. Despite the doctor's diligent efforts, my mother-in-law never regained consciousness and peacefully passed away. She was such a kind soul. The moment I learned of her passing, I collapsed in tears right there. An hour later, my husband arrived at the hospital with our daughter. They, too, sobbed alongside me, mourning the loss of my mother-in-law. I observed from a distance as they grieved, but my attention shifted to my husband's phone, casually placed nearby. Just then, a timely message appeared on the screen, and the short text caught my eye. My heart skipped a beat. Did the plan succeed? Indeed, the message explicitly stated that. What is this? What does it mean? Despite my agitation, I wanted to understand the context. So, I pretended nonchalance and handed the phone to my husband. Hey, someone sent you a message. His eyes widened in surprise as he snatched the phone from my hand. Why are you so flustered? His response was evasive.
Oh, thanks. It might be something urgent. I'll check it outside.
With those words, my husband hurriedly grabbed his phone and left for somewhere. As much as I wanted to tail him, I couldn't leave our still-crying daughter behind. The following day, my mother-in-law's funeral was conducted solemnly, and afterward, the police investigation concluded that the cause of her accident remained unknown. Gradually, daily life returned to normal, but I couldn't shake off the nagging feeling about the content of that email from before. So, one day, about a month and a half after the funeral, as the memorial service for my mother-in-law approached, I mustered the courage to check my husband's phone while he slept. However, what I discovered was a horrifying truth. Is it possible that such a gentle soul like her lost her life over something like this? My hand trembled with anger as I resolved to seek revenge against my husband. And so, the memorial service day after my mother-in-law's passing arrived. After the memorial service, my husband sat with relatives at a dinner gathering, reminiscing about memories with my mother-in-law. I watched coldly from the sidelines. As the alcohol flowed, my husband's face turned crimson, and he seemed to notice my gaze. Incoherently, he began to confront me.
Hey, what's with that look? Are you secretly glad Mom is gone because you disliked her?
That's not true. She was always kind to our daughter and me. I respected her.
Then why did you lend her my car that day? If you hadn't meddled, she wouldn't have been in that accident.
My heartstrings snapped at his words. I had blamed myself countless times for that incident, but I couldn't bear hearing it from him. The one who tampered with things to cause the accident is the real culprit here.
Huh? Tampered? What are you talking about?
In an attempt to play it off, he chuckled nervously. That's when I thrust my phone screen toward him. Earlier, I had covertly forwarded email exchanges from his phone to mine. Those messages revealed a sinister plan between my husband and his affair partner. They intentionally manipulated the brakes on the unfamiliar car I drove, intending to harm me. The email he received in the hospital, did the plan succeed? Was sent by the affair partner. Their ultimate goal was to collect insurance money after my demise and then flee abroad, leaving our daughter behind. Exposing this truth to our relatives, my husband's face was drained of color. He stammered.
I thought I'd already deleted the evidence. Why?
His panicked outburst confirmed his guilt. Later, as relatives bombarded my husband with questions, he stumbled over his answers, unable to provide a coherent response. I watched him with disdain. He lashed out at me, blaming me for everything.
Hey! It's all your fault that things turned out like this. Do something!
Isn't it all your fault? I'm going to tell the police everything, and you'll face the consequences. As I reached for my phone to report the incident, my husband finally realized the gravity of the situation. Sweat poured down his forehead.
Wait! I'm also grieving the loss of my mother, you know! Please don't report me! I'll break up with my affair partner. Mom wouldn't want to see me get arrested by the police.
Even if you break up now, it won't bring Mom back. Besides, she'd want you to pay for your actions.
Mom would never say that.
He lunged at me, but relatives restrained him. I proceeded to make the call. Just before they loaded him into the police car, he tearfully apologized, but my resolve remained unshaken. Afterward, I divorced my husband. The evidence I had became decisive, leading to the arrest of both him and his affair partner. Their malicious act of tampering with the car resulted in the loss of a life, and they are now facing approximately 10 years in prison. As for the $20,000 compensation I demanded from them, the affair partner's parents and my ex-husband's relatives each paid their share. When they re-enter the outside world, they'll be expected to repay it. On the other hand, I moved to a slightly distant place with my daughter, starting a new life. Despite our busy schedules with work and studies, we support each other and live happily.
How did you find this story? If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing to our channel. Until next time.
Run away immediately.
As a pregnant woman, I went to the checkup with my husband, but I was the only one led to the neighboring room. There, the doctor showed me something that made me want to scream. The doctor whispered urgently.
Stay quiet. Don't let him notice you.
It revealed my husband's chilling true form. Desperate to avoid his gaze, I sprinted outside. But midway, sharp pain gripped my belly, and I collapsed. What do I do? I wondered. Suddenly, a car appeared before me, and I was dragged into it. I am Olivia, 32 years old. As an office worker, I was caught up in work every day, leading a life where I only slept at home. 2 years ago, on my way home from work, I encountered my husband, Michael, who was selling flowers from a mobile cart. His lonely eyes left an impression on me, and occasionally, I would visit to buy the small bouquets he created.
Thank you for being a regular customer. Do you like our flowers?
Yes, I love them. But in truth, I had developed feelings for Michael. Gradually, we started talking more, and I learned that Michael had no family. He had lost his parents in an accident during his college days. I, too, had lost my parents early in life, and our shared experiences drew us together quickly. Michael had moved away from this place filled with painful memories and lived in a remote area for a while. However, the convenience of familiar surroundings eventually led him to move to my area just 6 months ago. Before long, we both realized that we were essential to each other and got married. I left the apartment I had been renting and moved into my husband Michael's apartment. Our life together, sharing household chores, was filled with happiness. However, there was one thing that bothered me. Michael wouldn't let me enter his room. His room had a separate balcony with running water, but access to it was strictly prohibited. Why won't you let me inside? Let me at least clean it.
I'm nurturing a precious new plant species there. If it's exposed to even a slight temperature change, it could be disastrous.
I reluctantly accepted his explanation, although it didn't quite sit right with me. From that day on, Michael always locked his room whenever he left. Perhaps he doesn't trust me. It's a bit sad, I thought, my heart heavy with unease. One day, when I returned home early from work, I found a key lying in front of Michael's room. Without thinking, I picked it up. Suddenly, a voice behind me shouted,
Return that key immediately.
Startled by the shouting voice from behind, I watched as my husband snatched the key from my hand, his expression more terrifying than anything I had ever seen before.
I've warned you not to enter my room.
I only picked up the key that was lying here. I haven't opened any doors.
So you haven't been inside?
No. My husband's anger surprised me, and I found myself on the verge of tears.
I'm sorry for raising my voice,
Michael said, his demeanor softening. There's no need to get so upset.
It's just that I've been worried about the seedlings I'm nurturing.
Michael's usual kindness returned as he gently wiped away my tears. Being diligent at work is a good thing, but ever since then, an awkward tension has hung between us. From that point on, I found myself constantly on edge, wondering when Michael would explode in anger. It was around this time that I began sensing a rift between my husband and me. During that time, the smell of food made me feel nauseous, so I visited the obstetrician. There, I discovered I was pregnant. We're going to have a child, I told my husband. His response was hesitant.
Oh. I see.
I pressed him. What's with that reaction? Aren't you happy? He replied.
It caught me off guard because it was sudden. Becoming a father. It's quite profound.
Although he smiled and gently touched my belly, I sensed his lack of enthusiasm. Honestly, I wasn't fully prepared for parenthood either. Perhaps that's why I could empathize with his feelings to some extent. From the next day onward, my husband took the initiative not only with grocery shopping but also cooking meals and brewing tea. Michael seems pleased, I thought. While my morning sickness wasn't severe, I was at a critical point in my work, so I decided to leave household chores to my husband. I felt genuine gratitude for his consideration, especially since my job was becoming increasingly challenging. At work, I managed to keep up with my usual tasks, but when I returned home, I was drained.
You need to nourish the baby.
Yes, I understand. He then prepared pumpkin soup, my favorite, with care. In his apron, he thoughtfully crafted a smooth soup, considering both our unborn child and me. The following day and every day after, he continued to cook nutritious meals and serve beneficial teas. However, despite his concern, my morning sickness worsened day by day, and I began to feel pain in my abdomen. Just as the scheduled checkup approached, my husband insisted on driving me to the obstetrician. Soon, we sat in the examination room, waiting for the doctor.
Let's conduct a more detailed examination.
Unexpectedly, the doctor suggested and led me alone to an adjacent room. There, a shocking revelation awaited me. The doctor's stern expression intensified as he whispered,
You must escape immediately.
Confused, I asked, What did you just say? The doctor hushed me and showed me a photo on his phone, an astonishing image. I can't believe this! I stammered.
Stay inconspicuous near the staff entrance. I'll explain everything later.
The doctor instructed. My mind spun in turmoil as I followed his advice and stood before the door, my emotions in turmoil. Suspicion toward my husband grew as I stared at the photo the doctor had revealed. But I couldn't fully process it. Furthermore, I couldn't fathom why the doctor had summoned me to this place. Can I trust what the doctor said? What should I believe? And before I knew it, I was running as fast as I could. I don't have a specific destination, but if I don't hide, the baby might be in danger, I thought. Straining every muscle, I pushed myself to move away from the hospital, gasping for breath. It hurts. Suddenly, the pain in my abdomen intensified, and I collapsed on the spot. What should I do? If I'm discovered, it'll be a disaster. Despite my attempts to stand, my knees trembled uncontrollably from fear. In that critical moment, a car pulled up in front of me. A stranger emerged from the vehicle and forcibly dragged me inside. Wait, let me go, someone help! The pain in my belly and the overwhelming fear left my mind hazy. Unable to get out on my own, I remained in the car, uncertain of where it was taking me. After about 30 minutes, they finally pulled me out of the car, cradling me as they led me into a room. As I entered the room, there stood the doctor who had urgently told me to flee earlier.
I'm relieved you're safe. When you didn't appear at the staff entrance, we searched for you.
But the person who put me in the car earlier was a stranger.
That was one of our nurses. You've likely seen her when entering the examination room.
The doctor explained. Now that I thought about it, I vaguely remembered encountering the nurse when she had gestured for me to enter the examination room. Despite the nurse's repeated assurances during the car ride, "You'll be fine, don't worry," my confusion had rendered her words unheard. As it turned out, the nurse had driven me around for 30 minutes, waiting for my husband to leave the hospital. The doctor apologized, explaining that the sudden shock from the photo had left me unsettled.
I'm truly sorry. We've informed your husband that you need urgent surgery and asked him to wait at home.
The doctor's unwavering commitment to a mere patient intrigued me. When I inquired about the reasons behind his actions, the doctor revealed a profound purpose. The doctor, who is the director of this hospital, explained to me the reason for saving the photo he showed me. That left me astonished. Gradually, my thoughts began to align, making sense of the bewildering situation. After a while, I noticed my throat was parched. I reached for my water bottle, intending to take a sip of tea, but the doctor intervened.
Hold on.
He said, leaning in to sniff the liquid.
How long have you been drinking this?
About a month. My husband has been making it for me. The doctor's response was unexpected.
This is a type of tea that pregnant women should avoid.
Reflecting on it, I realized that since my husband started brewing the tea, my nausea and abdominal pain had intensified. Could this be the cause of my discomfort? I asked. The doctor nodded solemnly, and suddenly, my situation became clear. What kind of person is he? I wondered aloud. And why didn't you immediately report this to the police? The doctor explained that he wanted personal retribution. After hearing his reasoning, I was rushed to the director's hospital for treatment. Unfortunately, I miscarried. Following the procedure, as I lay on the bed, tears streaming down my face, the doctor and nurse comforted me. It's a difficult time, they said, gently patting my back.
You were in the early stages of pregnancy, so once the anesthesia wears off, you can go home. But stay here for now, considering your husband's situation.
The doctor had prepared a nearby room at the nurse's station, just in case. Alone in the room, grief over losing the baby overwhelmed me. Gradually, that grief transformed into anger. I'll never forgive Michael. I'll investigate thoroughly and make him pay. Determined, I first called my husband.
Olivia. They suddenly said you needed surgery, and I was worried. How are you feeling?
The baby didn't make it, and I'll be in the hospital for a while. As soon as I voiced it, tears overflowed, and I sobbed uncontrollably. Michael kept repeating insincere words like, "It's tough, isn't it?" or "I'm feeling sad too," until I stopped crying.
You must feel alone. I'll come to your hospital room right away.
After a while, when I finally calmed down, Michael's voice softened. Visiting hours are over now. Come tomorrow at 10 a.m. He genuinely listened to my request. The next day, I left the hospital at the time Michael was supposed to visit. I returned home and noticed his car wasn't in the driveway. Sneaking inside through the front door, I found Michael was absent as well. This was my chance. I reached for the doorknob of his room. It wasn't locked, and the door swung open. Inside, I discovered things beyond my imagination, and even more shocking items revealed themselves one after another. With this much evidence, I felt confident. I immediately called Michael. Where are you?
At the hospital. I'm having them check the room where you're staying.
Sorry. I've already been discharged.
What?
His voice echoed like a roar, and he demanded to know where I was. When I told him I was back home, he abruptly hung up the phone. Within about 10 minutes, my husband rushed into the house, clearly flustered. When he saw me sitting on the sofa, he let out a relieved sigh and said,
It must have been tough.
I replied nonchalantly and placed something I had found in his room on the table. Michael's expression briefly shifted, but he quickly regained his usual demeanor. This is the herbal tea pregnant women shouldn't drink, right? I asked. Michael responded,
There's no way that's true.
I pressed further. Not just tea, but you also mixed it into my food, right? I placed a bowl of soup from the freezer on the table. Michael shook his head vigorously, denying any involvement. Even when I confronted him, he refused to confess, insisting that he only fed me nutritious food. You sell flowers from a mobile stand and grow herbs. Do you really think you can talk your way out of this? I challenged. Michael replied,
I know about flowers, but herbs are just trivia.
Frustrated, I pointed to the evidence. Then what's this? And forgetting to lock the door, that's careless. Determined not to let him slip away, I stood up and swung open the door to his room. There, in his room, were numerous illegal plants that he shouldn't have been cultivating. Even my husband, usually composed, broke into a cold sweat, his face turning pale. He couldn't come up with any excuses and fell silent. I can't believe you're growing so many dangerous plants. By the way, I've taken photos as evidence, just in case. Any attempts to deny it would be futile. His mouth moved, but he only mumbled vague responses. Frustrated, I entered his room and slammed down a suspicious ledger I found in the closet, a record of outrageous prices for selling herbs. Michael stammered.
That's a misunderstanding. Among the flowers I grow, there are some exceptionally valuable ones you can't find elsewhere.
I challenged him. Which flowers are those? Like this poppy-looking one? Be honest, and I'll cooperate. Michael hesitated, then finally confessed.
Really? Well, the truth is.
With a calm expression, I listened to my husband's story. After losing both parents in an accident, he initially lived a comfortable life thanks to life insurance. However, as the money dwindled, he turned to cultivating illegal herbs to finance his college education. That must have been tough. So after graduating, you started the mobile flower business? I remarked. Michael replied,
Yeah, that's right. Selling herbs through a flower shop seemed reasonable. Plus, if things got dicey, I could always move elsewhere.
His smirk made me shudder, but I managed to maintain composure. Did you give me those forbidden herbs because you were after the life insurance payout? I confronted him, thrusting the expensive insurance certificate I found in the closet toward him. Michael's face twitched in surprise.
This was for you in case something happened.
He stammered. Ordinary policies don't cost $350,000. Were you planning to send both me and our unborn child to the afterlife? His insistence wavered, so I showed him the photo data from the obstetrician. This wanted criminal and Michael look eerily alike. Granted, you're not wearing black-rimmed glasses now. Michael retorted.
It's just a resemblance.
I challenged him. Then let's go to the police station to verify. Sweating profusely, he scratched his head and reluctantly agreed. But the next moment, he lunged at me.
Wait! That's enough!
The doctor, who had been hiding in the kitchen, rushed toward my husband. In a swift motion, he hoisted Michael onto his shoulders and threw him to the ground with a resounding thud. Michael remained writhing in pain, unable to move.
You sent my grandchild to the other side 3 years ago.
The doctor declared, shocking Michael to his core. It turned out that 3 years prior, the doctor's granddaughter, Isabella, had fallen seriously ill during her pregnancy and tragically passed away along with the unborn child. And at that time, her husband was none other than Michael. Isabella's pregnancy had been progressing smoothly, and her health had been excellent. However, an autopsy revealed an alarming amount of drugs in her system, leading to Michael being pursued by the police as a wanted criminal. At the time when Isabella and her husband were married, the doctor was working overseas and had no prior acquaintance with Michael. But upon hearing the devastating news, the doctor promptly returned to the U.S. Despite exhaustive efforts, he couldn't locate Michael, who had seemingly vanished. Undeterred, the doctor established his practice in the U.S. and continued the search for the culprit. When my husband unexpectedly walked into the examination room with me, he was taken aback. Thinking on his feet, he swiftly moved me to the adjacent room.
Damn it! I thought it wouldn't be found.
Michael clenched his teeth, his gaze icy, sending shivers down my spine. When we first met, you lived in that remote place to avoid attention, didn't you?
Yeah, Olivia. You said you'd cooperate with me, right?
Absolutely. If it's to make you pay for your sins, I'll help. Clearly flustered by my unexpected response, Michael stammered.
Olivia, I genuinely love you. I didn't want our unborn child to take you away from me, so I made you drink those forbidden herbs. I'm truly sorry.
Are you trying to brush this off so lightly? I lost a precious life.
From now on, I'll focus solely on you, Olivia, and serve you. Please believe me.
I stared into his eyes, then shook my head vigorously, sending a stern message. Do you think I can stay silent after you sent my precious child to the afterlife? Don't play games.
If you want a child, we can have another.
No. I don't want your child. I won't show mercy to the man who betrayed Isabella and her unborn child. Live with the weight of your disregard for human life. At that moment, I saw a police vehicle approaching. Michael tried to escape, but the doctor quickly apprehended him, handing him over to the police. As they handcuffed him and led him away, I watched. Then, our home was searched. Just as I suspected, Michael had secretly cultivated illegal herbs in his room. Furthermore, he had grown dangerous plants and even mixed them into frozen food. Afterward, my husband was sentenced to prison for harming the doctor's grandchild and endangering me. Not only that, but it was also revealed that Michael had orchestrated an accident to send his parents to the other side, and as a result, he was barred from ever returning to our vicinity. The doctor, finally avenging his grandchild, shed tears after the trial. I divorced Michael and returned to a solitary life. Although I lost my unborn child, I began to think that it would have been even more painful for the unborn child to learn about the father's sins. I threw myself into work, and my efforts paid off with career advancement. Now, as a manager overseeing many subordinates, I continue to excel on the front lines of my workplace.
How did you find this story? If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing to our channel. Until next time, take care.